How much hubris does it take to not take responsibility for being part of the problem while pretending now to be part of the solution? The Surgeon General popped up and has some really interesting things to say about loneliness. So he said the COVID vaccination requirement to end next week for federal employees. Wow, that's interesting. They're not going to address it, like maybe that requirement was unnecessary and unconstitutional and all the other things. They're not going to address that at all. But we'll get into the loneliness piece here because it's kind of funny how they dance around that right there. They got to talk about the state of emergency ending and all these things, which is about 2 years too late, at least, maybe 3. But yeah, let's continue here.
As the White House prepares to end the public health emergency brought on by the coronavirus, our next guest says a new health challenge is taking center stage: debilitating levels of loneliness in America. Joining us now to explain, U.S. Surgeon General Dr. Vivek Murthy. Dr. Murthy, great to see you.
Great to have you.
So this is so important.
Yeah.
You've got this report out, something that I'm not sure a lot of people appreciate how profound the problem is and the impacts of it. Physical, it can be like obesity, it can be like a lack of exercise, it can be like smoking in what it does to your body. So
I'm just pretty proud of him for saying obesity there. Like, I'm sure he got some fat shaming tweets after this.
lay out, if you would, just how deep this problem is in America.
Well, Willie, I'm so glad we're here talking about this because loneliness is a problem that has existed behind the shadows for too long. And I came to realize this when I first began my tenure as Surgeon General and I traveled the country and would talk to people who would tell me that they were lonely, but they wouldn't use that word. They would say things like, I feel I have to carry all these burdens in my life by myself, or I feel if I disappear tomorrow, nobody would care, or I feel invisible.
Don't feel anything.
Right. And it turns out that millions of people struggle with loneliness. So when you dig into the data, what you find is that about 1 in 2 adults in America was reporting levels of loneliness. And these numbers are even greater among kids. But what you also find is that loneliness has serious effects on our mental health and our physical health, raising our risk for depression, anxiety, and suicide, but also increasing our risk of heart disease, stroke, dementia, and premature death.
So what is at the root of this, doctor? I mean, we talked a lot about the phone. We talked about the way technology has changed our lives, made us a little more insular, even though we're connected in digital ways. As you study the problem, what's behind it?
Well, that's the right question. And it turns out that this is a problem that has been building for decades. We have over 40, 50 years seen declining participation in the community organizations that used to bring people together, including service organizations, faith organizations, and others. But we're also seeing that our life has changed dramatically. We move around more, we change jobs more often, and technology has utterly transformed how we interact with one another. Now, look, tech can be good or bad. It can help us or hurt us. It's how it's designed and how we use it. But what I worry about is that it has too often replaced our in-person connections with lower quality online connections.
So you can see there that the focus when it comes to loneliness is tech. And while yes, tech has been a big part of this, social media, your phones, screens, lack of in-person connection. I personally take a lot of responsibility on myself to get out and be around people. I'm very extroverted. Struggled the past, 3 years just having to be not around people. I'm very connection driven as a human being. That's one of the reasons I love coaching so much, is because I can be able to get in and sit down and no phones, talk to somebody, even if it is on a screen, and just get into it and spend that time dedicated. That's a rare experience for a lot of people. That being said, maybe there was something that all of these people endorsed over the past few years that may have thrown gasoline on this fire, that it might be productive and actually add a little bit of confidence in their ability to be honest if they would address and maybe take responsibility for. And I have a quick sample of that right here for you.
Social distancing is really physical separation of people.
It's what we refer to when we ask people to stay at least 6 feet apart.
Not going to bars, not going to restaurants, not going to theaters where there are a lot of people. It all just means physical separation so that you have a space between you and others who might.
Wow. I wonder if that helped or hurt the loneliness situation. I wonder if the incessant focus on physical separation for years helped or hurt the loneliness situation. Maybe there was some blowback from this insane overreach that impacted people's lives in a negative way. And maybe the first thing you could do if you want to talk about loneliness and the problems of loneliness is take responsibility for your own part in it. Maybe that would be a little bit more robust when it comes to your ability to have, for people to have faith in you, right? Like there's a lack of trust in this relationship here, and it's not unfounded, right? Because you're sitting here saying that you have a solution to a problem that you made worse and have taken zero responsibility. Now, if you make a problem worse and you say, shit, we fucked up, maybe we should have done that. But no, what you're going to do is deflect responsibility, distract with tech. Now, I do remember the tech stocks, as somebody who's interested in the stock market, the tech stocks in this time went through the roof. Zoom, Meta, Facebook at the time, Twitter, even Snapchat probably had a bump. So what were people doing when they were physically separated? Spending a lot of time on their phones, Netflix, spending a lot of time alone. And no, don't go to movies or bars or restaurants, because somebody who's 400 pounds and has 4 different covariables could maybe die. That's the reality that we were faced with for years. Now, that had nothing to do with me or you. And if you felt lonely through that time, like I did, you can probably look at this and be like, wow, how much hubris does it take to not take responsibility for being part of the problem while pretending now to be part of the solution and blaming it on tech exclusively? What you did over the past few years was push people more and more into tech. Now, what we could have done at the beginning of the thing is said, hey, this could take a long time. The best thing you can do for this is the most honest thing you could have said. Most honest thing they could have said. The best thing you can do for yourself is make sure you have people to talk to. Make sure you're not spending too much time alone. Move your body. Take this time to get your health right. Here's some comment. We're going to bring somebody in that's going to stand at this podium with millions of people watching every day. We're going to talk about common sense health things you can do. Eating real food, getting sunshine, being outside. A community is a good part of mental health. Focus on that stuff. And then maybe if you need to get some kind of treatment from the pharmaceutical industry, maybe do that as well. Right? And then how much life can change? How much can your life change in a year or 2 years? That's how long it was, right? Well, they had gyms shut down parks, filled in skate parks with sand, robbed us of human connection. And now we're in this place where we're completely disillusioned, which could be productive. Maybe still reeling from that experience. Maybe it has lingering effects from that experience that are still going on, along with a frustration and confusion on who to even turn to for real information. And the people who threw gasoline on an already existing fire can't even take a responsibility for that part, as if the fire just burned out of control on its own. But how much lifestyle change can you make in a couple of years? It can be absolutely huge for you and the people you're around, because that influences the people you're around. You could lose 100 pounds in a year, 2 years. You can get way healthier in a couple of years. I mean, I see, shit on Instagram. I do love success stories. So I see them all the time of like me in 2021, me in 2023. And it's just like, damn, girl, you did it. Or shit, man, you sent it, bro. Like guys that are 350 pounds coming in looking shredded, stacked up diesel style. Now, it's not that everybody needs to do that, but you can get your ass outside and go for a walk, be in the sun, get some fresh air, focus on yourself. We could have had those resources, but what was the answer? The answer was the profitable one, as it tends to be. So just wanted to bring that up because I saw that when there's a glaring hypocrisy, I have to expose it. And I hope that through that, maybe you see a little bit of like this trend, right? The trend that keeps happening, and spot it. See, I feel like I was lucky because in college I was talking about things like the FDA, big food, corruption, regulatory capture. I was doing that when I was 21 years old. So I knew the patterns. I knew what to watch out for. and still got fooled in many ways. And I can only imagine what it was like to view that thing having not seen those patterns before. And the feeling of exploitation, distrust, frustration that you have now. So maybe just seeing this and seeing how they're deflecting currently. And the Surgeon General seems like a nice guy. And to be fair, the Surgeon General at this time, 3 years ago, was a different person. But they're all part of the same machine. And so when we look at this, we got to think, all right, maybe these aren't the people to trust for my health and well-being. I know that's a stretch. But the food pyramid people are not the people to trust with your health. Really important. And the funny thing is, it's not that complicated. We talk a lot about environment and greenhouse gases and carbon. One of the best things we can do is localize agriculture. What if your food came from nearby where you live? Think that would change things a little bit? That would change people's connection to their food, how they eat, how they think about things. If it doesn't come from 5 states away, from a meat packing facility that has a functioning monopoly on cattle ranchers, keeping their profits low, do you think that would be just a better energetic environment for us to have food localized, right? So maybe it goes from the ranch to the processing place, which is maybe across the street, and then to the grocery store. Maybe that should be our focus, because all these major cities, whether it be Austin, Chicago, Denver, they have huge areas of agriculture outside of those cities. I have a lot of faith they could be able to feed that city with the surrounding 50 miles. But we're going to go plant-based and rob all those animals that do exist in these environments of their livelihood and their ecosystem. That's what we're supposed to go with. So you can see how this stuff just does not seem to add up, right? And there's no one taking responsibility for their fuck-ups. So how are you supposed to respect and trust some organization that has zero accountability and zero transparency and gaslights you when their failures become obvious?